I haven't worked out in a month, so I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, I haven't worked out. I don't even have gym memberships. I just play ping pong and my lats hurt. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping?
Wait, what?
What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping? Whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him laud, the babe, the Son of Mary.
Oh, I didn't know when to breathe there.
How was it? How was it?
I didn't know when to breathe there, but that's a song to bring us into the Christmas mood.
Yeah, I wanted it to be a little Celtic.
Thank you for that great introduction, Pastor Eugene. Good morning. I didn't even say good morning. Good morning, one and all. Today is December the 12th, Monday morning as the usual. And today we'll be talking about some current events. And at the end, we'll be reflecting on this year, on the past 2 years in review. All of that and a little bit more this morning on the Dear Church podcast. Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. My name is Sam Yang.
And
Please.
I am William Wallace.
I'm Christine.
Why does no one say their name?
I just sang the alto.
You don't sound like Christine. So we have with us Pastor Eugene Kim and Chunseok Seo. So before we begin, gentlemen, I wanted to just see how you guys are all doing. We are halfway through December. We're almost at the end of the year. This is maybe the busiest season for those who are serving and working at church. So what is happening? What is going on? How are you guys all doing?
I'm okay. I was sick this week, but I'm fine now.
Hope you feel better. So Pastor Eugene, today I wanted to take some of the biggest headlines of the day and discuss them with you and kind of talk about how as Christians we are to view, think, talk about these things with others. And so first I wanted to go back to the Respect for Marriage bill. I know a couple episodes ago we did discuss this bill and why it is actually not respect for the marriage bill. It is the disrespect for marriage bill. Marriage bill. What is that? What is that song? RSPSVTT?
Yep.
What is that?
That's what you mean to me.
RESPCT?
Nope. RSVB.
Wait, who's that? Is that Aretha Franklin? On December 8th, this last Thursday, as a matter of fact, the House passed the Respect for Marriage Act. Prior, we had discussed that the Senate voted to vote on this act. Then it was later passed by the Senate, sent back to the House, and was passed by the House on Thursday of last week. And now it is on, well, I guess today it is on Joe Biden's desk for him to sign, which he inevitably will do. Joe Biden gave a statement, and this is from the White House, and I want to read it for us. Today, Congress took a critical step to ensure that Americans have the right to marry the person they love. The House's bipartisan passage of the Respect for Marriage Act by a significant margin will give peace of mind to millions of LGBTQI+ and interracial couples who are now guaranteed the rights and protections to which they and their children are entitled. After the uncertainty caused by the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, Congress has restored a measure of security to millions of marriages and families. They have also provided hope and dignity to millions of young people across this country who can grow up knowing that their government will recognize and respect the families they build. I want to once again thank the unwavering champions of this legislation in Congress, the Representatives Nadler, Cicilline, and Davids in the House, and Senators Baldwin, Collins, Portman, Sinema, Tillis, and Feinstein in the Senate, who refused to be deterred and brought this vital bill over the finish line. Together, we showed that it's possible for Democrats and Republicans to come together to safeguard our most fundamental rights. On this day, Jill and I are thinking of the courageous couples and fiercely committed advocates who had fought for decades to secure nationwide marriage equality at the Supreme Court and in Congress. While we are one step closer on our long journey to build a more perfect union, we must never stop fighting for full equality for LGBTQI plus Americans and all Americans. This is what Joe Biden said. Couple interesting things. I don't know where interracial couples snuck in there or how, because that was never in question. And also he says, one step closer on our long journey to build a more perfect union. So marriage right now, as God has instituted, is an imperfect union and it needs to be perfected. So with this passing of the bill, when it is signed by Joe Biden, this becomes federal law. Pastor Gene, so what does this bill do? What does it look like for the church? What does it look like for Christians? And how are we to discuss this with our neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, what they're trying to do, obviously, most of you have probably heard by now, is trying to equate other unions and put it at equal level or equal footing with the union between a man and a woman, which God has ordained and instituted since creation. And so this is obviously an affront against biblical norms and values, but an affront also against nature. Trying to equate those two, obviously, which aren't equatable, is something that is alarming to a lot of people, disconcerting in the very least. And how we ought to respond is by continuing to tell people the truth. This is what God has ordained. This is what is right for us as humans to do in order to glorify God. And a same-sex union or any union other than a man and a woman under God is not a right union, and it is an aberration. Is it an abomination, to use old Bible language too, which still is relevant today, that we ought to tell people, warn people against. This is not, just because two people love each other does not constitute marriage. It never has, and it never will. Marriage is about commitment. It is about, instilling values to the next generation. It is about making sure that you glorify God in the fruitfulness of your union. It's not just about physical fruitfulness, but it is about spiritual fruitfulness. It's all these things. And to change that, people think that we can change it to whatever way we want. We want that reset button on what, love is and what constitutes marriage. Just because human beings say that we're going to put this into law doesn't mean it is law or it is in fact, truth. We don't dictate what truth is. Law should reflect what truth is. But instead, we're trying to make law to kind of shape what people's truth should be. And that's why we're saying this is wrong. This is outlandish in many degrees. I could talk about so many things about how any kind of sexual relation outside of a marriage between a man and a woman, a husband and his wife, is aberrant behavior. It is dangerous behavior. We could talk about, and now if you talk about anything that, like, let's say we talk about pros and cons. If we talk about the cons of, let's say, even gay marriage, people call that homophobia. If I talk about incontinence that, gay people suffer from, that's homophobia.
Yep.
We can't talk about that.
Yep.
We just got to keep it in the dark. It's a real thing. It's an actual symptom. And people in the army, like, they have to, if you're gay, you have to make those kind of preparations where in the battlefield, you put a diaper on. Like, we can't talk about that because people will get so upset. If we talk about any kind of abnormality that these kind of relationships bring. That's homophobia, that's bigotry. We started with things like no-fault divorces. We started with sex outside of marriage and what that produces children and what we ought to do with that. So any kind of aberration or delineation or deviation from the biblical norm, now what we do is, instead of calling that, actually that's morally not right, it's immoral, we'll say anything about it is bigotry or homophobia. It is, some kind of discrimination. But it's just facts. We're just saying facts. Gay marriage and heterosexual marriage are not equal, not only in what it produces, but even in the terms in which people come together. It's not love. People have to get it. It's not emotional. It's not physical love. This is talking about a covenantal love. That's what marriage is. It's when you covenant to the other person, saying, this is what I'm going to do to death do us part. And because of this covenant love, is going to point to the marriage between Christ and his church. Losing that, especially Christians who are saying that gay unions are okay now, we've lost all semblance of, basically moral sanity. And the House passing it, the Senate passing it, now the president, probably by the airing of this, he would have signed it.
Yeah.
Unless a miracle happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just shows us the state in which we are, in a state that is basically a nation in dire need of repentance.
So two follow-up questions to that. Number one, it seems like this whole movement is just really founded on this foundational idea of love, right? I mean, Joe Biden even says this is a critical step to ensure that Americans have the right to marry the person they love. This is about love. What even is that? I mean, because I think the way that the Bible defines love is very, very different from the way that the world defines love. And I think that's where we might even need to start if this conversation comes up with our coworkers, with our neighbors, with our friends. What is love? And then there's that song, Baby Don't Hurt Me No More. What is love? What is the biblical view of love versus the worldly view of love? And how can we kind of talk about this with those who are around us? Because I think that's what the argument always goes to. It's love always wins. Choose love. So how do we even have this conversation?
It's been there for forever, pretty much. This idea of love being, or at the center of love being pleasure. And so pleasure-seeking people will dub their hedonistic desires as love, but it really is just a seeking of sensual pleasure. It's been there even before Freud, even before all these modern thinkers were able to pen it. But it's been there even before the Greeks, tried to romanticize it. And so it's been there from the very beginning, where we want to twist love. But love, we understand because love has been shown to us. And so we know what love is because God has shown us love. And it is a giving of the self, and not a taking. So we have lost that very basic premise of what love is because we now think of love as a taking. And so why be married? Young people don't want to be married. This whole thing of Respect for Marriage Act, it won't even be relevant if we continue on in our trajectory, because young people don't want to get married. That's insane. Young people have partners. They don't get married. And so that's what you see now. That's what's trending on TikTok, which again is the spawn of the devil and the Chinese government. I think they're in cahoots. But joking aside, half joking aside, why in the world, if you understand love to be what it is now, why would you get married? You wouldn't want to get married. That's not what love is. Love isn't commitment. Love isn't a covenant. Love isn't the giving and sacrificing of yourself. Love isn't lowering yourself to lift up the other person. Love is fulfilling a need that you have. It's carnal. It's animalistic, right? And so this person fulfills this thing that I need. That's why I love this person, is what would be normal in today's thinking. And so, yeah, I don't even see marriage being a big deal. It's just the reason why this is a big deal to people is because they're Christian. Christians find this to be a big deal because it is an affront to what marriage really means. And so if it is an affront, that means what people will do is they will use this Respect for Marriage Act to attack people who have a biblical view or, a conservative view on what marriage is. So how dare you think that marriage can only be, set aside for man and woman who love each other in the sight of God. And man, how dare you? And so, even this idea of love is twisted because now we have let it become twisted instead of going back to what the Bible shows us, because God showed us what love is first. He's the one that gave himself up for us. Ultimately, that showing of love was through the giving of his son to us. John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his only son, right? And so that is love, the giving up of oneself, and that sacrifice that we see that God has done for us. And so now when we love one another, we are saying that we love one another in light of what God has shown us what love is. And that's not how the world sees it. You continue to reject God, and love is just about fulfilling some carnal desire. Like I said before, it's about scratching that itch. That really is what love is. And that's what's in the end, what I'm saying. If you equate love with scratching an itch, that is evil. Evil, because that is not what love is. In fact, that is the opposite of what love is, because there is no sacrifice to that. And now, instead of sacrifice, what do we say? So instead of love, we think of pleasure when we say love. And when we think of sacrifice, what do we think now? We think of intersectionality, how much we have, quote unquote, suffered, right? And so as a minority in this area, I have suffered, or my people have suffered. That we equate with sacrifice. So it's not current sacrifice. It's what has happened in the past or what people could potentially do. So that's not sacrifice at all. Sacrifice is the laying down of your life, not the laying or the life that was laid down before.
Yeah.
That's not what sacrifice is. Sacrifice is what you do now. And what you do now will have effects on generations going forward. It's true. But now people just don't want to even think about sacrifice. It's about what we have suffered as this minority group and what we are owed or what we are due. California passing this like multi-billion dollars, like in the hundreds of billions of dollars, Reparation Act, which is just nonsensical logistically. There's no way you could track this. Who gets this money, that kind of thing. But, they're just passing it because who cares if it makes sense? It doesn't matter. It's just about signaling to the world of what their morality is. And their morality is, this wrong has been done, so we will correct it. Even if the solution doesn't make sense, as long as we're attempting to correct it, that's what should be lauded and applauded, which is obviously not true. That's what all the dictators did too. There's this wrong, we're going to correct it. And they corrected it by, promulgating pure evil. Look at Hitler, look at Stalin, look at all these, Mussolini, look at all these evil people out there. They would tell you a wrong and they would correct it by giving you evil. That's not correction. And so, who cares, right? That's the trajectory. Who cares what the solution is as long as we're trying? No. The solution really does matter. You can't just say who cares as long as we name the wrong. Anybody can name the wrong. Not everybody can name the solution.
So to summarize, they're actually opposites then. The worldly idea of what love is versus what the true biblical idea of what love is, because the biblical idea of love is sacrificial, it's serving, whereas the worldly idea of what they think love is a self-serving, lustful kind of desire.
Yeah, I think it's antithetical to each other, meaning they're not just on polar opposite ends, they are fighting each other.
Yeah, yeah.
They are at war with one another,
Yeah.
just like your spirit is at war with the flesh.
Mm.
They are at war with one another. And that's why Christian ideals will always be at war with secular ideals.
I have a quick question. Well, I guess it's more of I want to pick your brain a little bit, which I guess is what a question is. But I was recently watching this show that shall remain unnamed, but it's a reality TV show. And it's about how love is blind.
Is it called Love is Blind?
I can't say what
It's
it
a
is.
show where the love is blind.
No, but it's a show where their whole premise is that love is blind.
And so they're blindfolded? Folded?
Not blindfolded, but they go into these pods and then they talk to one another. I'm giving away what the show is, but it's a show that's premise is love is blind. However,
And then they go, can I get a hug?
no.
if-
So it's interesting because later on, after they get matched or whatever, they are engaged and then they live together and they have sex. They share intimacy. They do all of these different things, and yet they still want to get married. And so what you just said reminded me, and I want to just kind of pick your brain a little bit. Why do you think secular people that are not Christian, why do they want to get married? I'm just kind of confused because they do everything that a married couple would do. Is it for tax breaks? What is the purpose in the worldly sense? What is the purpose of marriage?
You're asking me what I think, why personal people do personal things.
No, I'm just curious because for us Christians, it's very clear what marriage is. It's very clear why we have marriage and what you can do within marriage that you can't do outside of marriage. But for people in the world, those lines are blurred. They can do everything that they want. So I'm just kind of curious. And I was just thinking, like, why do people even get married in the first place then?
I mean, well, it's just I can't speak for everybody, but let's speak generally. Generally speaking, traditions are very hard to break.
Mm.
And so traditions are upheld, they are valued, they are seen as beautiful. We still go to cathedrals and think they're beautiful. We are not fully in the French Revolution. That's what the French Revolution wanted to do. That's why they killed thousands, swaths, of people that were religious. Hundreds of priests were killed. This was a movement that tried to get rid of all traditions because they wanted to start anew. That kind of movement is still going on, but for the normal folk out there, traditions seem beautiful because they come down from something beautiful.
Yeah.
If they took 5 seconds to think about it, maybe they would realize. But what they want to do is generally speaking, what people would want to do is to take the beauty of the tradition without adhering to the tradition itself.
Right.
And so I would imagine that this would play a part in many people's thinking and mind, where you would see that there's beauty in the cathedral, so you want to get married there without, acknowledging why the cathedral exists. The blood that was spilt for every brick to be put in place, that kind of thing. I don't think people would care about that because they want to adopt the beauty without the sacrifice. And so I would imagine that has something to play, that has some part to play in people's understanding. In our podcast, in our church, we always talk about, the history, context, and those always play a part in our understanding, which is why I think it's a great thing that you would ask the question. And you would think it's kind of odd that they would get the order mixed up. Why do all these things that married people do first and then do the ceremony of marriage? Because
Right.
people don't understand what the marriage is, but they still find beauty in the institution or the tradition. And so I would imagine that could play a part in some people's thinking. But I think also, now physically speaking, I think we are wired to be jealous of the partners we have been intimate with. So the deeper you go with someone in a relationship, there's a trust that follows. That means there's an exclusivity that should come. And people innately, unless they purposefully and willfully fight that, they are inclined to say, I don't want to share this really intimate part with the world. I want to share it with those whom I have selected. Okay. And that ultimately boils down to one. For a lot of people, I'm not saying all people, for a lot of people, it boils down to one. So now I'm speaking naturally. So speaking nature-wise, I think nature also plays a part. But, there are, I guess I could think of many dimensions on why someone might do those things. But again, those two might be the big ones for me.
Yeah, I was just curious, and especially with no fault divorce and just divorce rates skyrocketing, I just was thinking about why people even then want to get married in the first place, and why they even
they could beat all odds, like that Shania Twain song.
Is that My Heart Will Go On? Is that Shania Twain?
That's Celine Dion.
My second question was, how did interracial marriage get snuck in there? Because that was something that was never in question for a very long time. And so why is that in there? How is that in there? Why are they using that to push their agenda?
I mean, it was never a law that they passed, so they decided to equate this. And it's an equating where they are trying to use this to convince the public this is the logic. And
right, or it's the same thing.
Well, that's what they're trying to show.
Right.
It's basically the same thing. If you don't let two people that are gay get married, then it's like two people of the different skin colors getting married.
Right, which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous on multiple levels. Like naturally, it's ridiculous. Again, in nature, it's ridiculous because one characteristic is immutable and the other is mutable, meaning it can change. You can turn gay. That's a fact now. I mean, even gay people acknowledge this. When that gay man's choir saying, we will convert your kids.
Your children, yeah.
That literally means that they can be converted. They're saying that's a characteristic that's mutable. Scientifically, it is a mutable characteristic or trait. You turn gay.
Yeah.
And that's what people still say. Anyway, there are immutable characteristics like your skin color. You can't turn, to a different skin color. Those two on its face are not equatable. But the reason why people think that they are equatable, or these politicians try to make that connection, is because they're trying to say what you said before, love is love. So if you try to block two gay people from getting married, or bar them from getting married, or don't acknowledge them that they are married, it's like not acknowledging two people of different skin colors getting married.
Speaking of love being blind, do you think that love is blind? I already have my answer, but I just want to hear your response. Do you think love is blind?
Maybe.
Oh, that was not my answer.
All right. What's a good answer? Perhaps. Or your favorite word, mayhaps.
Mayhaps.
Yeah.
Speaking of, yeah.
Yeah, love isn't blind.
Isn't that a ridiculous premise?
Emotions can make you blind.
Yeah.
Yeah, emotions can cloud your judgment. That's what it means to be blind. And so if you have really strong passions, it can cloud your judgment, which is exactly what is meant, I think, by love is blind, right? And then they took it to a positive spin. Like, love is blind, that means you can't stop who you have passions for. Yeah, but it also, on the flip side, shows that your passions can lead you into a very dangerous place. Extreme case meaning death.
And what was actually a little upsetting for me as I was watching this show, where the premise is that love is blind, is that there was a Christian, quote unquote, Christian couple that was having premarital sex and living together and praying together. So that was upsetting. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Why are you watching these shows?
No, so I just wanted to watch a reality TV show because I never have.
There is this really good
again.
reality TV show that you should watch. It's about an office workplace. It's in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
That's not a reality TV
That's
show.
where our president is from. So you should be very...
Scranton?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought he was from Delaware.
He moved to Delaware.
Oh. Speaking of big moves, there was a big move that happened same day, Thursday, December 8th. A move from Russia to the U.S. On Thursday, December the 8th, Joe Biden and the United States negotiated and swapped a Russian arms dealer named Viktor Bout, nicknamed the Merchant of Death, for WNBA player Brittany Griner. Brittany Griner, as a reminder for us, is a WNBA player that was playing in the Russian league for the summer because that was their offseason. She was caught carrying vape cartridges and hashish oil in her luggage. So she had cannabis, weed-derived oil cartridges in her luggage. She was caught with it, and she was sentenced to jail. Viktor Bout, on the other hand, is an arms dealer that was sentenced to 25 years for providing weapons used to kill Americans. One was carrying vape cartridges. The other provided weapons to kill Americans. I just want to make that clear. That was the swap. And Brittany Griner came home. And I think one of the biggest controversial things that people have been saying is that we brought home Brittany Griner, but we left American ex-Marine Paul Whelan. He's an Iraqi war veteran who remains imprisoned in Russia since 2018. Brittany Griner has been there for, I think, 10 months. And there's also another prisoner named by the name of Mark Fogel, who's a teacher from Pennsylvania. Paul Whelan, and this is kind of where what people are focusing on, is a former Marine sentenced to 16 years in prison for espionage, and he has had an unfair sentencing under an unfair trial. That's a lot, and I know that Chunseok actually has a lot of things to say about this. He was exploding this morning. He was just telling me all these different things, but is this something that we should be celebrating? And I asked this with an interesting tone because I was listening to ESPN radio the other day, and even they couldn't fully be on board with what was happening. And we know that ESPN is liberal. And it's interesting that I feel like people across the board are kind of turning their heads saying, is this right? Is this something that, sure, we are definitely happy for Brittany and her family, but is this something that we should be celebrating? How do we view this?
It's a political move. I mean, I think most, if not all, people see this as a political maneuver to get someone easy out and say you had a win. But the trade might not have been an equal swap because, what we know about Viktor Bout is that he was an arms dealer for or in Russia, sold weapons like in Africa, sold weapons to the Hezbollah, to terrorist groups and things like that. And so this man is not a good man. He was in custody. I think did you say it? From 2008, he was in custody. They caught him in Thailand or something.
No, that was Paul Whelan. That's 2018. But Viktor Bout was sentenced to 25 years.
Yeah, Viktor Bout has been in custody since 2008.
That's before I graduated high school.
And then, we know that there are a number of people in Russian custody that are jailed there, imprisoned there. Yeah. And so the military personnel that you mentioned was accused of spying, I think. That's why he's there. And
yeah, I
think the Biden admin's reasoning was that this person was never on the table of negotiations. And I guess the pushback is, why wasn't he on the table? If he wasn't, the Russians, then they'll say the Russians were never willing to discuss his trade or the freeing of him, but they were willing to discuss Brittany Griner's. And so we go with what we have. I think politically, this is all politics now. I think politically shows a massive weakness on our side. And it would have gained points for people who like Joe Biden already. So at the expense of U.S. Sovereignty, power supremacy, the show of their own strength, I think he gained a few political points. I guess you could argue that, but we're delving into the realm of politics here.
Yeah,
As a Christian, I think anytime someone comes home that is imprisoned in a, in an enemy state, we should be happy to a degree.
Yeah.
But she did commit the crime, and it was an extraordinary amount of marijuana that she had. It was more than just personal use, apparently, allegedly, right? And so those are things that we start seeing, and those are things that I guess are hard for us to then fully, I don't know, be compassionate about. As a Christian, I think for me, I just take a step back and I try not to get too emotional about things. Like corrupt people will do corrupt things. People absent of any kind of moral compass will do crazy things. Sometimes they may do something right. Sometimes, a lot of times, they'll do something wrong. And then I would pray for the big guy, or I would pray for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And I would pray that, God would instill a fear in him that is rightfully a president should possess. What he is doing is going to last for generations, perhaps, even if it's a short 4-year tenure, it's going to leave damages for a long time. Just like President Trump, when he was president, I believe that the institutions made sure that there were scars and marks that would last longer than his presidency. Perhaps, and he probably did some of that stuff to himself. And so there are forces at work that are, not going to let this slip by. I don't know. There's just a bunch of stuff. And that's what I kind of think that as time goes on, I kind of become more post-mill. I think that you can't get away from the truth that Jesus Christ is Lord as time goes on. And if you deny it, you are overtly denying what's becoming more and more obvious as time goes on.
This is actually a question that came in, and I thought it would be a good time for us to reflect on this question. And this question is titled Reflection on 2020 to Present. And I think it's because that's the year that we started this podcast. How did these last 2 years shape us as a church? In the beginning of the podcast, we talked a lot about the then current season, which was so evident because of the pandemic and lockdowns. A few years out, I think it'd be really cool to reflect on the past, on God's faithfulness, and our season now as a church, as Christians today. And so I thought, as we are nearing the end of the year, the calendar year, it'd be a good time for us to just reflect and perhaps hear your thoughts on just the reflection on the past couple of years.
I think it's different thinking about certain things and articulating those things. And so in this podcast, we were able to articulate a lot of the things that we believed to a more deeper level. Things like, I don't know, the greatness of God, the sovereignty and, the kingship of the Son. What the Holy Spirit does, and some aberrations of that of these beliefs. We also talked about, how when you twist certain things, you come up with critical theory, and how Christians can start to fall for certain devices of the world, which is critical theory. Critical theory is 100% a device of the world. There is no redeeming quality for it. And I say this with great certainty, because we have done 2 podcasts on critical race theory, but we see that this theory was birthed from an anti-Christian perspective. And so when people say there are redeeming qualities to it, and I would always push back against it. But there are all these forces. I hope that people can see now, all these forces that are out there in the world. There are so many. But what we have to watch out for are the forces that are trying to change Orthodox belief, the things that the Bible says is true, and the forces in the world that are trying to change that from being true to sometimes true to maybe true to false. Things like gay marriage. We even talked about side B.
Yep, we did.
Now people, if you even entertained the notion of side B, now there are 4 sides.
Of a square.
No, of this this discussion, there are 4 sides.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. This is not just side A, side B. There's like two other sides besides side A and B, which we won't get into. But that's how ridiculous it is. Where, if you want to continue to go down this road, it just gets more convoluted. It becomes more incomprehensible, this language that people are using now. And you're going to try to make sense of everything, and it's just not going to work. In the end, if you continue to go down this path and this road, I think you'll go into not just chaos and disorder, you'll just go into this automatic deconstruction. You don't even have to deconstruct your own faith. You'll just be deconstructed. And then your beliefs just won't make any logical sense. They'd be like, yeah, I believe I'm a cisgender side Y, or
Yeah.
and they're like, what does that even mean? No
Right.
one knows anything.
Right.
It's like, well, it's one of the views that you could hold in the Bible. And later on, you're like, well, it's not a view I hold anymore. It's
Mm.
malleable, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other reflections on the past couple of years, Pastor Eugene?
I think it's great. I think it's great that people are listening. I mean, I really appreciate our audience around the world, apparently. And when
International.
we look at the, what do you call those things? Like the feedback, of people who listen. I forgot those charts.
Oh, yeah.
There's something called Chartable. And in Chartable, they tell you who's listening and where and how many. Just seeing who's listening to our podcast is fascinating. I don't
It
even
is.
know why people around the world are
It is.
listening,
Yeah.
but people are. So in the end, I'll say something that I guess should be obvious if you've been listening, but this is for the glory of God. And I hope that if anything, it'll encourage you to adhere to what the Lord says in his inerrant and infallible word
Yeah.
in the Bible and not anything else. Let that be the standard. And if we have any discussions or debate, let that first be the standard before having that discussion and debate.
Yeah, I think, I've personally been very thankful that we have this way of talking about and discussing certain theological topics that you may not have a chance to discuss in a sermon or, talking to somebody one-on-one or lead a class in. I mean, the fact that we got to talk about certain things like critical race theory during everything that was happening in the year 2020 and 2021, and even egalitarianism. Those are things, and even like, baptism, charismatic movement, and all these different topics that I think may not have come up on a Sunday sermon. We were able to discuss them and talk about them, and it got other people to ask more questions and to think and to have discussions amongst themselves about the truth. And I think that was I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's sanctification right there. We're supposed to think on those things, whatever is true, whatever is
Right.
noble, whatever is beautiful. We're supposed to think about those things, not the idiot, foolish things of
The tomfoolery.
yeah, of
Yeah.
what the
I've been
world will
seeing
try to
that
do.
word like everywhere recently.
It's been kind of crazy. The past 2 weeks, everyone's been saying tomfoolery. I don't know what happened,
Why?
but I started it though.
Ooh,
No, I really didn't. No, not the word itself, but this new trend that's happening.
ooh.
It's been.
Yeah, but I like see it on like Instagram, like people posting.
really?
Like, look
Oh.
at this tomfoolery.
Just like any thoughts, any reflections?
I mean, for the most part of the podcast, I've been an audience or a bystander. I just sit behind the computer, but just even from that and listening to the podcast and the discussion that happens every week, it's been a blessing for me personally in my personal devotion and just thinking through the implications of how, as Christians, we are able to live in this world, especially discussing things like CRT or liberation theology. I think these are so commonplace in our world today. But for us to have a correct biblical understanding, and for this to be a place, like you said, Sam, where people can bring questions, people can uh, ask what the things that they are confused about. I think it's been not only a blessing for me, but for just so many people at our church.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to end this episode because it's the end of the year. I want to hear your top for the year 2022. And, the Spotify Wrapped 2022 just came out. And I'm just curious as to what your number one song and artist was for this year. And I'll ask some other questions. But, Pastor Eugene, what was your number one song and artist
Yeah, I have to
for
open up
this
Spotify.
year?
Discover your music highlights. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. How do I click it?
Yeah, I don't think you can.
I can't click it.
No, it just shows you what it is.
Yeah. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is my favorite artist.
Wow.
The first song that I listened to is by Symphony Grave Live. George Friedrich Handel.
That was your
Messiah.
most Messiah.
I listen to it every Sunday with Elizabeth driving to church.
So Handel's Messiah is your number one song of the year, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is
I
your
thought it might have been Yay, but I guess
That's
not.
the Renewing Your Mind song.
yeah.
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 Wait, is it Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart or Wolfgang Amadeus Beethoven? It's
What?
Mozart. It's Wolfgang Mozart.
Yeah.
So Mozart was your number one artist, and Handel's Messiah was your number one song. That's vastly different from mine.
Than what you expected?
No, from mine.
Well, I mean, I really wanted to listen to as much Meek Mills as possible.
that's Meek Mill. It's 1 mil.
And some Yay.
Multiple mills.
Some Yay would have been nice. Some Britney Spears. I don't know. Whatever. I listen to everything though.
Mozart number one.
There's nothing I don't listen to.
Jean's like, was yours Blink 182? What was your
No, I got
Nickelback.
Lift High the Name of Jesus by
That's your number one song?
Keith and Kristen Getty. I think I
you're a
listened to it for
Getty
Praise Team.
man. That's awesome.
And then
Wow.
2 through 4, I watched the musical Hamilton for the first time this year on Disney
Yeah.
Plus.
Wow.
So it was those songs. And then 5 was that song from Stranger Things,
Ooh.
the Running Up the Hill song.
Wait, what was your number one artist?
Keith and Kristen Getty. I'm top 1% listener.
Wow.
I feel that
That's amazing.
Your-
You should go to their concert on Thursday.
your
praise and
playlists
practice.
are much more sanctified. All right, let's move on to other top things.
Sam, what was yours?
No, I can't say.
Please.
So I think Spotify was bugging because so it says that my number one song is somebody that I've never heard of in my entire life. And I listened to the song and I've never heard the song. It's called Love by Yim. YHIM. And it's some weird rap song. I've never heard of it in my entire life. So
Maybe it's someone else's.
that was
Or
my
maybe you
number
share
one
an
song.
account.
I don't know what it is. And then
Maybe you share an
apparently
account with somebody.
I
yeah.
listened to it like 159 times. And then the most time I listened to it was on a Thursday that I had Praise Team. Very interesting.
You want to see what my other song top song?
Oh, yeah. What were your others?
The Search by NF.
He's not a rapper.
Yeah.
You listen to rap?
Oh, when I lift, I turn on The Search
Wow.
by NF.
Wow. Yeah. And my number one artist was Drake.
Oh, you love Drake.
I'm the top 6% listener of Drake.
Wow.
I don't even like Drake. Anyway, let's go into some other top things. And this is just off, boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Pastor Eugene, top podcast other than this one of 2022.
Oh, Renewing Your Mind.
Chizuk?
I listen to Today in Perspective every morning.
I know, but what's your
Yeah,
favorite?
that one.
Oh, that one?
Today
wow,
in Perspective.
with
There's so many good ones,
Harry
though.
Reader. There are a lot of good ones.
We should give some shout outs to podcasts that are good.
Mind
Today
Pump.
in Perspective is great. We always talk about the Daily Briefing by Al Mohler.
Big Al. Yeah.
I really like the Plodcast by Doug Wilson.
Mortification of Spin.
Mortification of Spin has your
Truman.
boy, Carl Truman.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just Thinking.
Just thinking podcast.
Yeah, by
Great.
Daryl Harrison and
Yeah.
Virgil Omahawk Walker. That's a great podcast.
I listen to Morning Wire if people are interested in that.
Morning Wire is a great political news thing.
Yeah.
I think it just gives you bare bones.
Good
That's why it's
morning
great.
update. Yeah.
Not too much commentary, which is awesome.
Yeah. I listen to Mind Pump
I
sometimes.
don't know what that is.
It's a working out
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
But anywho, I listened to John MacArthur sermons on that Grace to You app.
Yeah. Grace to You is great.
podcast. Yeah. What about favorite app? Boom. Favorite app. Boom.
Apple Podcast.
Apple
Easily.
Podcast. Okay, Junks, go. Boom.
Hold on. I have to look.
Junks is iMessage.
It's Google
Oh,
Maps.
probably Twitter this year. I've been
Oh.
on Twitter a lot.
Number one movie.
Ooh, the other day I saw Maverick.
Great movie. Great film.
Yeah. I would say that's easily one of the top of 2022.
What was your favorite movie of this year, Junks?
I didn't see anything in theaters that was good.
You didn't like Spider-Man.
Was that this year?
I think so.
Wasn't that last year? Like around Christmas time?
Yep.
Yeah, I watched Thor,
Love and
Black
Thunder.
Panther, both trash. Doctor Strange was so bad.
Can I ask an important question? Which is worse? Thor, Love and Thunder or The Eternals? This is what we need to know. Which is worse?
I haven't watched either.
Oh, really?
I thought Thor was worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty bad. Favorite food experience of 2022?
You know, I got to say, most recently, I don't know about 2022, I can't recall back to that far. Most recently, I have been enlightened by our producer to eat the skin off of the sweet potatoes. And so
That's nice.
what I do is, I scrub the sweet potato, get the dirt out, and then, you bake it, and then you eat it with the skin on. Brilliant. It's awesome. And you tried it this morning, didn't
But
you?
it's not like an experience. It's
great.
I mean, it's mid. It's
The
okay.
experience was mid.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was great. I love it now.
Add a texture.
she's like, what is your number one food experience of 2022?
I don't know. What did I eat? The Praise Team potluck this past Monday was pretty
heard.
nice.
I heard it was
You
great.
missed.
I heard it was great.
There was so much food that I didn't get to eat every single item, entree that was there.
Last question. Favorite show of 2022?
I binged Stranger Things this year, so
Oh, yeah.
pretty good. Cobra Kai season 5 was
Wow, yeah, Cobra
nice.
Kai, yeah. That's
My
right.
wife and I watch maybe an episode a week of Blue Bloods.
Is it that police show?
Yeah. I wanted to watch a show without any sex. Please. And then Blue Bloods came out.
Cobra
It's
Kai doesn't
great.
have sex.
Eh.
Stranger Things doesn't have sex.
eh.
Oh, no, it does. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, please, no more promiscuity.
Yeah, mine was not the show with the premise that love is blind. Terrible show. But what a great year. Let's have another good one coming next year. So with that, we thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church podcast. Join us next week as we get into some holiday vacation episodes.
Nice.
What's your favorite Christmas carol? Not
Holy,
him.
holy, holy.
Not him.
Oh,
Holy, holy, holy is your favorite Christmas hymn?
yeah. I mean, it's just my favorite hymn. I feel like it connects to Christmas. My favorite carol?
I thought it was Baby It's Cold Outside.
Wait, that song, yeah, that song has bad vibes. Yeah, I don't really, that song
Is it
has
Junzak's favorite?
abusive vibes.
No.
I don't really like that one.
Yeah. What's
Um,
yours?
I like Away in the Manger.
Oh,
That was a nice one.
okay, all right.
Away in a Manger is great.
Yeah, what is yours, Pastor Eugene?
I don't know. I've been binging a lot of Christmas hymns these days for the Sunday preparation,
Yeah.
Advent season. So there's so many good songs. In fact, Table Talk has a November issue where they go over Christmas hymns, which is
Oh.
awesome. Yeah, and they go why this is a very theologically sound or rich
Wow.
Christmas hymn. There's that one that we sang where it actually has the Nicene Creed in it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
come all ye faithful.
I'll call all you faithful, second verse.
True God of true God.
Yeah, it has the Nicene Creed in it,
Yeah.
which a lot of people didn't know the second verse existed because
Yep.
a lot of contemporary singers take the second verse out.
Mm.
Yeah.
But so what is your number one?
Did I say my number one?
No.
Definitely Jingle Bell Rock. I mean,
That's a good one. Yeah, Jingle Bell Rock is a good one.
Yeah.
But we will be getting into some holiday vacation episodes. Remember last year we had Christmas with the Elders. Will we have it again? Tune in to find out.
Mayhaps.
Mayhaps we will. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight. Finish the race. Keep the faith.
Peace.
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 All right, let's do it one more time.
Peace.